Hi, Vanessa or Amy. Can I be a co-host? I can help rename.
Yes. 1 second, on. Okay, it should work now. Thank you. And I see that it's 5, so we are going to go ahead and get started with our meeting. Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thanks for attending today's meeting. It's nice to see you all after a couple months of not having a meeting. To ensure that everyone is able to access today's meeting, whether you're a CSC member, a resident, or another member of the public, we are going to start off by providing some instructions on how to choose the correct language channel on Zoom. So if you're a monolingual English speaker, please select the world-like interpretation icon at the bottom of the screen, and then select English. If you're using Zoom via a telephone or a tablet, you will select the 3 dots to see more options, followed by interpretation, and then English. At this time, I'm going to pass the mic on to Lingüística to read these instructions in Spanish.
Thank you. Buenas tardes. El día de hoy tenemos el servicio de interpretación disponible para aquellos que lo requieran. Si se están conectando desde una computadora, en la parte de abajo del menú de Zoom van a ver un icono que parece un mundo, que dice interpretación. Seleccionan ese icono, seleccionamos español y luego silenciar el audio original para que puedan escuchar solamente el español. Y si se están conectando desde una tableta o desde su dispositivo móvil, pueden tocar la pantalla, seleccionar los 3 puntos, seleccionamos interpretación de idiomas, seleccionamos español nuevamente y silenciar el audio original. Y una vez que hayan terminado, ponen finalizado, terminado o listo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diana, for reviewing those instructions for us. Now that everyone is in the correct channel, we're going to go ahead and continue on to the next slide. All right, good evening once again, everyone, and welcome to our August Chapter Community Steering Committee meeting. It's great to see you all again here virtually. My name is Vanessa Gomez, and I will be facilitating today's meeting with my colleague, Dr. Amy Ramos. We are joined today by our colleague, Dr. Diana McDonald and Stephanie Ng from the Air District. Dr. McDonald is new to the Shafter facilitation team, and she'll be observing today's meeting as well as assisting with taking attendance tonight. I'd like to pass on the mic to Dr. McDonald now so she can share a little bit about herself.
Hi, thank you for having me all. I'm excited to be with you this evening. So like Vanessa said, my name is Diana McDonald, and I'm a senior consultant at Harder & Company Community Research. So I work with Amy and Vanessa quite a bit. My background is in public health. Some related work that I've been doing lately is I'm one of the facilitators for the Mental Health San Francisco Community Steering Committee. So it's a similar kind of steering committee for all of the mental health services in San Francisco. And I've also working with the Sierra Health Foundation to evaluate the asthma mitigation project, which has been providing for the past 3 or 4 years funding for 28 community-based organizations to do some asthma home visiting services throughout the state, including many in the Central Valley and in Kern. I'm super excited to be working with you all. I've heard lots of really great things about this group, so thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Diana, for introducing yourself to everyone. Before we kick off today's meeting, there are some housekeeping items that we'd like to review with you all. I know that these are familiar to many of you, but it's always helpful to remind ourselves of what those are. So before we get started, we ask that you please mute yourself and make sure your full name and organization are showing as your screen name. To change your screen name, please click on the top right side of your picture or video. If you're a CSC member, we ask that you use the naming convention CSC -first name, last name. So for example, CSC Jane Doe. If you're a resident, please use the naming convention R -first name, last name. And for all other participants, use the naming convention first name, comma, last name, dash affiliation. If you are a member of the Air District or California Air Resources Board, you can use AD or CARB as your affiliation. If you're a member of the general public, please use P. And for all other organizations, you can write your organization name as your affiliation. And we'd also like to note that meeting hosts may update your screen name as needed during the meeting. And as you know, Dr. Ramos and I are available to help with technical support throughout the meeting if needed. And we will also be keeping track of the action items that come up during today's meeting. So please don't hesitate to reach out to our team at any time if you have any questions, and you can just comment via the chat and we will make sure to address those comments. We do not have a co-host for tonight, but we're always looking for folks who are interested in co-hosting with us, and we continue to encourage anyone who would like to volunteer to let us know so that we can support you and make sure that that happens. As a reminder to everyone, co-hosts decide the level of participation or facilitation that they take on during the meeting, and our team, as well as the Air District, will work closely with you to ensure that the co-host feels prepared during the meeting. And additionally, if you have recs or recommendations for any folks who might be interested in co-hosting and would be a good fit as a co-host, please let us know, and we'll be sure to connect with them. We want to thank you all so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for tonight's meeting. We continue to value your ongoing commitment and your engagement in this process, and it is ultimately because of your participation that you will be able to develop and implement new strategies to monitor air quality, as well as help reduce health impacts in your community. Next up, we have our virtual meeting agreements. So as you know, these are commitments that we ask that everyone takes heed of during today's meeting and adheres, so that we're able to continue to engage with each other in a productive way. Does anyone have any questions about any of these virtual meeting commitments before we continue on to the next slide? Not seeing any raised hands or comments in the chat at this time, so I will continue, but please feel free to comment if that is not the case. So before we continue on to the agenda for today, I'd like to direct everyone's attention to our group agreements and remind everyone that these norms apply not just to the CSC meetings, but to other meetings as well, including subcommittee meetings, even when Dr. Ramos and I are not at those meetings to facilitate. We'd like to let you know that both Amy and I were able to watch the recording of the last pesticide subcommittee meeting that occurred last month. And we're aware of some of the comments that were made that caused harm to some folks that are here today who also attended the subcommittee meeting. And we want to acknowledge that folks might be coming into tonight's meeting still feeling the impact of those comments. And the reason why we share these group agreements at the start of this CSC meeting and all other CSC meetings is to ensure that we as facilitators are cultivating a safe space for everyone so that folks can engage in productive discussion and respectful dialogue, despite the differences that we have, and work together to make sure that the measures and activities that are aimed at mitigating the harmful impacts of air pollution in the valley are being implemented fairly, and to make sure that everyone's quality of life and health, especially those of folks whose communities have been disproportionately affected by air pollution, are improved. We as facilitators acknowledge that your dissatisfaction with the way that things have progressed, and we also hear and understand. Oh, Bianca, I believe you have your hand raised.
No, I'll let you finish, Vanessa, and then I'll have my question.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So I was saying, we as facilitators acknowledge that many folks are dissatisfied with the progress that has happened. And we also hear and understand your push for systemic change and see your desire to shift from a mitigation mindset to a more preventative one, where these preventative measures are implemented so that the problems that the AB 617 program is designed to address and fix don't happen in the first place. And we definitely see the importance in that. And because as those of you who attended the subcommittee meeting last month witnessed, there will be folks whose opinions clash with ours and whose actions don't meet our expectations. And so it's important to continue to keep these group agreements in mind so that we can find common ground with each other and collaborate to help improve air quality in Shafter, not just today, but tomorrow and for future generations as well. And so at this time, I'd like to open up the floor to anyone who has any reflections that they'd like to share that would help move this discussion forward. Bianca, please go ahead.
I have a comment for the Air District, the facilitating team. What is the next steps that you guys are going to do to address comments that were done in the past? Are you going to reach out to that individual supervisors, or is there going to be any action afterwards? Because if we feel like somebody disrespect us, usually we'll have an action afterwards. And if we don't, that's simply just giving them a little tap in the back, letting him or that area continue doing that harsh lash towards community members. And I believe that we're all here to collaborate together to make this possible, to have air contaminant reduction in our communities, essentially work together. And if we have somebody that is doing something like that, we want to see what is going to be the next step.
Hi, Vanessa, this is Stephanie. I'm wondering if I can respond. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Stephanie, and I am the program manager in the Community Strategies and Resources Department. I was going to save some of this for my intro, but I just want to maybe acknowledge that I have been to some of these meetings, but I think I'm a newer face because normally these meetings are kind of led by the director of the Community Strategies and Resources Program, Jessica Olson. I think she mentioned it at the last meeting, but I did want to share that we're really excited that she's off on maternity leave, and we're just wishing her well. And I'll be stepping into these Shafter meetings in her place, and I'm really looking forward to working with you all in partnership, like Bianca is saying. I do want to address just the question of kind of follow up on what happened. And for folks that maybe are feeling maybe a little bit unsure of kind of where this is coming from, some of our, I think as many of you know, we have 2 communities that we work with in the South Kern area, and we do have some overlap between some of the folks that do attend both of those meetings. And so this is in reference to a pesticide subcommittee that happened in the Arvin-Lamont community. And so after that Arvin-Lamont pesticide subcommittee, the district did commit to reaching out to the ag commissioner to really share the concerns that were raised by the CSC. And so we did just want to give you the update that we did reach out, and kind of in that discussion, definitely made sure, like Bianca is saying, and I think like all of you have shared sentiments of just really the importance of being respectful and mindful of everyone's experiences that we have on the CSC. And so we did just want to let you know that we did follow up and discuss kind of the CSC concerns that were raised with the ag commissioner.
Did he mention anything back or any follow-up he's going to do, or a public apology that he might do? Because this is a commitment that residents have done for years. And if he's just going to get, oh, I'm not going to do it again, I'm sorry to say, that's not enough. It's just a continuous disrespect to community members. And we've addressed it with a board of supervisors that are his immediate supervisors. Now we're wondering what else we could do outside of that realm, because this is an area that residents are coming comfortable and giving their public opinion, and having somebody public officer coming and disrespecting them, it's heartbreaking. And we want to see what else can we do as we're continuously doing this work.
Thanks, Bianca. And I totally agree. I just want to share my appreciation. I do know that, and I read a really powerful article that came out just about kind of the efforts of the the community in South Kern, going to speak to board members just raising their concerns, and we really want to share our appreciation to CSC members for feeling comfortable to be able to do that and bring their concerns up in community meetings. I don't know the exact response, but I can follow up on that. But generally, yeah, we are committed to continuing to work with you all and moving forward kind of these concerns with the CSC does have regarding pesticides. So I just want to assure you all we hear kind of your concerns with feeling disrespected by comments made during these meetings. And we will continue to work with, the CSC, with the Ag Commissioner to see what kind of solutions that we can have moving forward.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Bianca, did that answer your question, or do you have any other follow-up questions that you'd like to ask?
No, that answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca. Does anyone have any other questions, comments, or reflections that they'd like to share at this time? Not seeing any comments in the chat now, and I'm not seeing any raised hands. So we will go ahead and transition on to our first agenda item for the night, but please feel free to share any comments related to this topic throughout the meeting. So now that we're transitioning onto the agenda for tonight, I'd like to remind everyone before we launch into the first item that the agenda items that you see in front of you are a presentation of the topics that are requested by CSC members. In other words, those are topics that came up during the last CSC meeting or topics that came up during the most recent agenda setting meeting. The topics that you see in front of you are designed to provide updates on action items from the previous meeting, provide an update on CERT measure implementation, and create a space to reach consensus on a proposed shift of funds to support the residential lawn and garden measure, provide an opportunity for CalGEM to follow up on joint inspection plans for oil and gas wells in Shafter, and for the CSC to provide additional feedback, and give DPR a chance to share a demo on the pesticide notification system. And I'd also like to note that standing updates will be sent via email for all agencies and partners for tonight's meeting. Stephanie, I know you shared some remarks, but at this time, I'd like to pass it on to you if there's anything else that you'd like to share.
This is Stephanie. Thanks, Vanessa. I wanted to thank everyone for spending their evening with us tonight to improve air quality in the Shafter community. Tonight, we have some really exciting updates that we will be, like Vanessa mentioned, looking for your support to move forward several of our CERT measures to get funding and projects moving in the Shafter community. I also wanted to share our appreciation with a lot of different agency partners that are here tonight. If you're looking around the Zoom room, you may see a lot of new faces who are here to support two of our main agenda items after our CERP updates. So we just want to share our appreciation for the partnership and for bringing updates to the CSC. Before we did get started, I did want to make one introduction to you all. As you know, we work very closely with our partners at the California Air Resources Board, or CARB. CARB has liaisons for each community to support this process. And so I did just want to introduce and give a second for Cameron, which is our new Shafter liaison from CARB. to introduce themselves. And I'm not sure if I'm passing to Cameron, or also I know Brian, her supervisor, is also here as well.
Oh, yes, Stephanie, you can pass on the camera. You did a great intro. And this is for everyone here. It's good to see you again. And I know Scott Wall is irreplaceable, but we're really happy to have Cameron on board. And she has a lot of ties with the Central Valley. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Cameron.
Thank you, Stephanie and Brian. Hi, everyone. My name is Cameron Cabose, and like Stephanie mentioned, I will be the new CARB contact for the Shafter community. And I'll put my email in the chat just so everyone has it. I was born and raised in Fresno, spent most of my life there, and I've studied and lived in Northern and Southern California. So really excited to be here and to be a part of this meeting.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Stephanie and Cameron and Brian. I'd like to take a moment before we continue to remind everyone that in addition to contributing the agenda items that you see in front of you, you're more than welcome to spend more time on items or table items if you wish to at any time. We want to remind you that this is ultimately your meeting, so we want to make sure that you know you have a say in how each meeting progresses. At this time, I'd like to pass the mic on to my colleague, Dr. Ramos, for the review of the action items tracker.
Thank you, Vanessa. This is Amy. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here with you tonight. Appreciate everyone who's here taking time out of their busy schedules to be part of the CSC. For our next action item, excuse me, we're going to be reviewing the action item tracker, and you will notice that there are a few changes. And we have the privilege of hearing from Rocio this evening, who will provide us an update to allow us to increase transparency and accountability of the action items that you all request as part of the CSC. And the Air District works really hard and continuously to ensure that each of those action items are implemented. So today's update will allow you to see and monitor some of the progress towards implementing your suggestions and your recommendations. As a reminder, throughout the meeting, we are working behind the scenes to write down all the action items that you all recommend. And then when time permits, we do read those aloud to allow for modifications. Sometimes we do run out of time, like tonight, we're going to have a very packed agenda. So we might only send those action items via email. However, there's always an opportunity to update the action item so that if you disagree or you have some modifications to how an action item was written down, please do reach out to the Air District or to our team, and we're happy to modify any of those action items. But this time, I'm going to have Rocio provide us an update on implementation of the action items that have been tracked over the last few months. Rocio?
Thank you, Dr. Ramos. Hi, everyone. I will share my screen, and I'm actually going to drop the link to the action items in the chat. And then before I get started, as Dr. Ramos mentioned, we did make a few updates to the action items in hopes that it will be an easier navigation for you folks. So for the 4 sections, we included a direct link. So if you want to just click on it, it'll take you directly to all the action items that are under that section. And each page also has the return to beginning at the very bottom. And you can go ahead and just click on that as well, and it'll take you right back to the top. So with that, let me get started. I'll just zoom in a little bit. Okay. So for the first action item 55.2, the Air District will provide updates on the community resident visitation, as well as updates on urban greening and vegetative barriers. And so we'll give an update on that today. Also, the district reviewed the locations of the resident tour, and all sites required to submit a conservation management practices plan were in compliance with the district rule 4450. Okay, the next action item. So I know there's been a request to give an update on the annual report, and if there is time today, because we do have a packed agenda, we can try to squeeze it in at the end, but if not, that will also go out with the standing updates in the email. Okay. And then once again, we will be giving an update on the vegetative barriers today. The next action item. So there will be a discussion in tonight's meeting for moving additional funds to the residential lawn mower program. And that way we can add more lawn mowers. And again, that's a discussion we'll be having later tonight. Okay, next action item. In the last CSC meeting, we did hear a request to know more information about the residential air filtration program, and if residents who already participated in the first round were able to replace their filter with this new round. And at this time, in order to maximize the number of residents in the area who are able to take advantage of the program, we are only allowing one per household, and as remaining funding allows, the district will reassess the approach. And again, just as a reminder, the Air District will work with folks directly who want to purchase a filter for a second home. And we will continue to send flyers. If you folks would like any, go ahead and feel free to reach out to us. You can drop it in the chat, send us an email, and I can go ahead and send you some flyers to distribute to the community. And the last action item, the Air District will distribute electronic and physical copies of the CalGEM slide deck. So we did go ahead and send this out via email on June 21st, and I did include a link right here that can take you directly to that. And this was also sent to the residents who requested them. And I also went ahead and included the CalGEM glossary of terms, and this link right here will take you directly to that. And if there's no questions, I can go ahead and pass it back to Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Rocio, and apologies if you can hear the background noise. I'm gonna go ahead and jump into the next agenda item, which is a SERP measure implementation update. It's pretty packed for an agenda item and there's several moving parts to it, so I'll be providing an overview of each part at a time for you all. First off, we're going to be offering updates and space for discussion about SERP measure implementation related to several topics, including residential vehicle replacement, EV charging infrastructure, and bike paths. We will be sure to write down your questions and develop action items corresponding to next steps, and we definitely encourage everyone to ask any questions if you have them. Stephanie, will you be presenting on those three topics today?
I will be. Hi, everyone. This is Stephanie. I do want to share, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if maybe there's a little bit of mix up. The couple of topics that I actually have for you all are slightly different than the ones that Vanessa mentioned, but I'm happy to walk through them. I have a little agenda laid out and everything, so I'm happy to go ahead and get started here.
Sounds great. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks, everyone. And so like I mentioned at the start of the presentation, we have, and like Vanessa just mentioned, we have a couple of measures that we have some really exciting updates on. And they're ones that I think are generally, we've heard lots of interest and lots of questions and that are of high priority to the CSC. So we are excited to bring these updates, and we'll be stopping at kind of several points because we want to allow for time for questions, as well as us looking for support to move forward with these measures. I'm going to share my screen so it's in full screen mode. Can you see this?
Yes.
All right. And so in today's agenda, we're just going to kick it off just celebrating some recent SERP milestones in the community, and three kind of topics that we want to bring to you all. It was requested from several community members to bring back the topic of the residential lawn and garden measure and reallocating funds for that measure. We also do want to bring up just kind of an update with the progress of one of our bigger measures, the heavy duty truck measure. And we'll have some discussion about that and potentially a new pathway to allow for more folks to participate in that program. And finally, we'll be, as we heard several action items related to this, we'll be presenting some updates on the urban greening and vegetative barriers measures. First, just some high level kind of quick updates we have for you all, things that are moving forward. We've had updates from this for several meetings now, but we did want to share the exciting news that we have finalized contracts with the city of Shafter to pave sidewalks and bike lanes along Highway 43. And so in the coming months, we'll hopefully be working with the city of Shafter to get that implemented in the community. We also have, and you all, I think, got an email update about this. We have a car share measure in our SERP. And for this measure, in order to find someone to implement the program and to set up this car sharing program in the community, we have released what's called a request for proposal. We did a very similar thing for the urban greening and vegetative barriers measures. And this request for proposals, again, is to solicit or seek someone to actually implement the program. That's currently open right now. And we'll be bringing updates to you all as that closes. And we have kind of some progress in terms of being able to implement the car sharing program. And finally, I did want to share that the Clean Air Rooms program is open. I know many of you in the community know this and have put in so much effort and work to get the word out in the community, to get your neighbors, your friends, your family signed up for the program. I mean, we definitely appreciate all of the work that you all have put into to get spreading the word of it. And we do have plenty of funding available for this program. So I did just generally want to share that overall, we have lots of applications in, but we still have over in the Shafter AB 617 community, over $900,000 available in the community. So please continue to tell your friends, your neighbors, anyone in the community that you think could be interested. Again, this Clean Air Rooms program is the program to provide free air purifiers to residents in the Shafter AB 617 community. And so this next piece is kind of transitioning. Ooh, and I see a hand. Go ahead, Michelle.
Do you know how many the air filtration systems have been awarded, or how many people have applied for it?
This is Stephanie. I do. And these numbers were as of this morning. In Shafter, we have 452 people that have applied for it. So a good number of folks, but overall in that original allocation, we had $1 million allocated in the community, which would be about 5,000 units.
How do you think that, I mean, I saw some initial stuff and it kind of dropped off. Do you think that we've reached out where we should be reaching? I mean, school starts next week. Maybe we could send flyers home, get them to the schools and maybe send some flyers home or something, because people don't sometimes really believe it. And maybe some extra paperwork maybe would find the right direction in someone's hands.
Yeah, Michelle, this is Stephanie. We 100% agree with you. We're not done. We are still running outreach for this measure. And we are actually in the next couple of weeks heading out to schools to do outreach. We did it last year as well. But we are actually, our outreach and communication staff is planning on going to drop-offs and pickups and distributing information about just generally air quality information, what the district does, but also specifically about this Clean Air Rooms program as well. And I also see Jamie here as well. Jamie, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Nope, we are looking at doing all of that and more. So Stephanie got it.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. And then I also see Maria, Annabelle. I think a lot of folks in that room. Go ahead.
Buenas tardes, soy
Good afternoon. My name is Maribel Valle. I'm with Annabelle. I have a comment in relation to the equipment. I don't know if you know. I know that the program for the air purifiers, they sent flyers, but they sent just a few flyers. We need more flyers. Here we were waiting, like when we received the flyers, we hope to receive more, but we didn't. So I think we should focus on like finishing this project so everyone can have an air purifier at home. You know, the weather, it's really bad. It's very polluted right now. The weather, it's terrible. And we should like finish one program before starting another program, because if we didn't finish the lawn mowers, they should have finished that one before starting with the air purifiers one. I think we should finish one before addressing another one, because otherwise you don't finish with one topic or with one program and you start another one, and then everything is left like in between. I gave the phone number to a lot of people so they could call and ask for the air purifiers, but they say that they haven't got an answer, that the phone numbers are not working. And it's important for people to know, and if they call, for someone to answer the phone and help them fill out the application, and they need to have someone who can help them with that, because otherwise, as you know, Shafter, it's a huge community, and we need for, not everyone can fill out an application online. So if there are funding, maybe just to have one person that is dedicated to receive the applications or to help people fill them out, if we want for this program to work and for each one have access to an air purifier at home. Um, um, for me, I think right now the lawn mowers are not really necessary. I would like to finish first with the air purifiers. And I think they only sent like 10 flyers, so it's not really working. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that what the paper, what you send by mail, the font, it's so small. You cannot read it. The font is so small that whenever I try to read it, it's almost impossible to read that type of font. So there are like little things that it will be good to pay attention to it, and try for, like, for this summer, the air purifiers to be at everyone's home. Like, we should try to do this as soon as possible, to pay attention to it before addressing another program. Let's finish this one before we start with another project. At least that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh. Just wanted to check those were all the comments before I started addressing them. Awesome. So I heard a couple of comments that I'd love to respond to. First, I just want to say that we are more than happy to share as many flyers as you all need. We didn't want to send a bunch of papers that folks we're just gonna go in like your trash can or recycle bin or whatever. But we are happy to share out as many flyers. So I'm hearing if you all want to give us a call or email us, we're happy to mail you stacks of them, flyers, as many as you want, you let us know. I did hear maybe a couple of things that I wanted to follow up on in terms of staff being available to answer the questions for people that are applying. I just want to assure you that we have a whole team of staff, including bilingual staff, that are ready and available to help people sign up for the program via phone. So I'm not sure, I'm wondering maybe if we can follow up with you about the number that you're giving out to folks. I know at one point, maybe some like personal cell phones were getting distributed in the community. We have a district phone number that is available that folks can call, and we're happy to sign them up. And so we're happy to share that number with you as well. And I know that also we have a good handful of outreach staff on this call as well that's happy to take feedback about the flyers if the font is too small. I did want to address also, there's a concern about potentially kind of focusing on this measure before moving on to other measures. I did want to let folks know that, we do have in our SERP, I think, over 30 measures that we are working on together. And I want to assure you that we definitely have, staff that we're working with that, are working in the background to make these measures, to implement them, to move them forward. I do also want to maybe put out in context that this is a program that we do have some timelines on. And I think if we waited for one program to finish, we really wouldn't have the opportunity to get to all these other really awesome measures that bring resources and funding into the community. And so I just want to put that into perspective that, there are all these other measures that we're already moving forward. We have a lot of measures that we have a handful of measures we completed. We have a lot of measures that we're making progress on. And just in terms of us being able to address these measures and get these resources out into the community, I just want to put out there that we definitely have, staff that are working on these programs, and that if we were to focus on one measure over another, it would take us a long time to get through, all 30 of these measures. And so I definitely appreciate that feedback, and want to assure you all that we are diligently working on these measures, and have the staff and capacity to continue to work on these, in parallel with each other, so we can get these resources out in the community. I hope that answers your questions. I also see Brianda's question, hands up.
Yes, thank you for that and for the space. I just want to reiterate how important this program is, especially during this season here in the Central Valley. Everybody is combating poor air quality and is just as affected for health reasons, and just to be preventative is really important. So with that being said, I wanted to ask, I know this program has been distributed amongst other communities, not just the community of Shafter, and it's really great to hear that there's still a lot of funds for Shafter, because as opposed to other communities where folks are already on a waiting list waiting for the next round. So it's really exciting to know that there's still a lot of availability in the Shafter community. I am wondering, at what point are you guys going to implement like maybe a second round for folks that want to get two in a home? And I am asking this because I had a testimony of a resident that received an air purifier. This happened in Delano, and he was a patient that suffered at nighttime, where he suffers from asthma, but at nighttime it gets really, really bad, and she coughs throughout the night. And as soon as she received this air purifier, that stopped, so she can now sleep throughout the night. So I know that when it comes to health effects and being preventative and just mitigating the effects of like asthma attacks and other illnesses, I'm wondering, like being in the room at nighttime, air purifier running, and it makes a huge help towards their well-being and their health. So I'm wondering if at one point where we see folks are no longer applying for this air purifier, it's kind of at a standstill, where you guys say, okay, maybe it's time to use the remainder of the funds to then supply folks that are interested in getting one for a second bedroom, or having to.
Thanks, Brenda. And this is Stephanie. That is definitely a good question. As of now, I think, and just as I've shared, we definitely are now, our team, my community strategies and resources team, and also our outreach and communications team, as well as our grants team, all are kind of pursuing different pathways to continue outreach in the community. We don't feel like we've exhausted that pathway yet, and there's still, especially given that we have back to school time coming, we still definitely want to continue outreach to parents and folks in the Shafter AB 617 community. But to your point, I think if it gets to a point that we feel that we've exhausted and should explore other pathways, that's definitely something we can consider. And let me know if I didn't answer your question, Brianda. I also see Maria Annabelle Marquez's hand up.
¿Me escuchan? Soy Maribel.
Can you hear me? Yeah, this is Maribel. Can you hear me?
¿Sí pueden escucharme?
Can you hear me?
Sí.
Okay.
We,
We had a problem with the computer and we couldn't hear your answer. But we just got back online now, and they said that maybe there will be a second round. It's a possibility to have a second round for air filtration. I think we cannot talk about a second round when we mentioned that each Shafter resident is going to receive an air purifier. We need to outreach for everyone to know that they can have access to an air purifier. If we know, like, the population of Shafter, until we haven't reached every citizen in Shafter, we shouldn't consider in having a second round. We have to make sure that everyone that lives in this area will have access to it. and that they are aware that they can access to an air purifier until we haven't completed it, because if people don't know about it, they are not going to apply for it. So I think we need more outreach efforts to send different flyers. Maybe we can go to the church after mass. The priest can help us. We can deliver the flyers outside churches. And I think before that, like we shouldn't consider to have a second round if we haven't make sure that each home at Shafter has an air purifier. Then when we are certain that everyone here has one, then we can address the other topic. That's what I know, because you know that those resources are for us to benefit from it. You know, the air, it's really bad right now. So we shouldn't leave everyone else to have access to it from a different community. I'm agree. After everyone has one here, then we can maybe consider other cities or other communities, but the priority has to be Shafter. That's what I think.
Thank you. And this is Stephanie. Maybe since it sounded like you didn't quite hear the responses, I'm happy to really quickly just respond once more, just to make sure you heard. And just getting to the comment you just made, I just wanted to update you and assure you that our focus is still to make sure, like you're saying, that we're still getting air purifiers into every single home in the Shafter community right now. And we don't feel that we've exhausted all of the outreach efforts that we can be doing. And so we're not looking to kind of change anything. But if it gets to the point, we could reconsider, you know, if it's the case that we, you know, that lots of folks have the filters in the community. We don't feel like we're at that point yet. Some of the things that we are doing, you know, we're doing back to school outreach. We're still working with definitely to get this information out in the community. I did also want to let you know, I don't know if you heard, but I did want to offer it, and my team can follow up with you, that we're happy to send you as many flyers as you'd like. And also just wanted to reiterate that you know, we do have a lot of measures in our SERP, I think over 30, many of which that we are making lots of great progress on. And so something that I'd also like folks to consider is that, you know, there are a lot of different resources for residents, for businesses, for different agencies that we can kind of work in parallel to get these resources out into the community and not have to wait, you know, one measure at a time to get these great resources and funding into the community. I think those are the couple of questions that you brought up. I'm not seeing any other questions. So I'm wondering if I appreciate all the comments that we've gotten about clean air rooms. It's definitely an important program. And we appreciate all the feedback and we will be continuing to do further outreach in the community and are happy to get more flyers out to community members to spread the word out to neighbors and friends. But maybe for now, I don't see any hands. So I'm gonna get back to the presentation, and feel free to raise your hand if you have any other questions. And so, as you can see in the slide, we're going to transition a little bit. This was actually, like Garcia mentioned, we had a few action items that were related to it. And this was a conversation that we had back in September of last year to discuss reallocating funds for our residential lawn and garden measure. As a reminder to folks, this measure is to replace gas-powered lawnmowers with electric equipment, essentially free to no cost for Shafter AB 617 community residents. Currently, we have 100,000 set aside in the SERP, and we spent a good chunk of that for about 80K and have distributed 192 mowers out to residents in the Shafter community, and we have about 20,000 remaining. And we have had this discussion a little bit, and I think at that last meeting, folks wanted to make sure that this, you know, clean air rooms had plenty of funding. As we kind of just discussed, there is still plenty of funding for the program for clean air rooms for residents to get free air purifiers. Separate from this, we did also hear the desire to potentially have another in-person distribution event like the one that we had. It's been a few months now, but the in-person distribution event that we had in the community, in order for us to hold this kind of event, I believe at the one that we had back in fall of last year, we gave about 100 mowers. And so for us to be able to hold an event like this, We do need to reallocate, we would need to reallocate funds if there's support from the CSC to do so. And so in this next slide, something that we wanted to bring up to you all kind of for consideration is, again, this opportunity to reallocate funds for this measure. If it was the case that you all wanted to support this, we would add 100,000, which is coming from our locomotives measure.
Stephanie, sorry to interrupt. I think Michelle
Sure.
has a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, the next slide, I wanted to say, yes, we should do it, but you haven't finished. I was a little fast on my hand, but I believe we should do it. We're not, that is a great movement. If you go back to your other slide, wow, 1 hour of a gas, it equals 300 miles in your car. Let's get rid of those lawnmowers and let's move some of that stuff back. That 1 hour lawnmower use equals driving from LA to Vegas. That says a lot right there. And I think we should move those funds. That's my recommendation. But you were almost there. I'm sorry, I was a little fast on my hand.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate the enthusiasm there. And I think you got to the kind of the point. And something, yeah, I just wanted to highlight, sorry, I just skipped right past this. This measure, just generally, we wanted to emphasize just the kind of the impacts that are happening very locally in the community. 1 hour of lawnmower use is about equivalent to driving a car, 300 miles from LA to Vegas. And these are really local, emissions that are happening in front of children, at homes. And so we feel this is a really important way to make an impact on kind of these local sources of pollution. And if I could go ahead and walk through this slide. And so like I was mentioning, for this residential lawn and garden measure, we do have an opportunity to reallocate funds. If CSC members are supportive of this and did want to add this 100K, 200 mowers would be added, and we'd have the opportunity to hold a large distribution event in the community like we have previously. And if folks did not support this, do not want to add 100K, there would be no change to the measure, and we continue funding about 40 mowers. I'm seeing some hands up. Happy to take questions about this.
Anabel,
¿Me escuchan? Soy Maribel.
This is Maribel.
Yo pienso que para ahorita
I think that for now, I think that if you give me $100,000, I wouldn't give 400 mowers. I will give more. How is possible that with that amount of money is only for 40 mowers? I'm not good at math, but I don't know, like two plus 2. But I think that's a lot of money for like so few mowers.
Yeah.
I think maybe the money it's being lost somehow, because I think it's a lot of money for just 40 mowers.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to clarify. If it were that, so the two options we have is the 100K, if we did add that, would go towards 200 mowers. If the CSC does not support adding funds, the remaining amount that we have in this measure without moving funding is 20K. And so that would fund about 40 mowers. That's where that number is coming from.
Tengo una pregunta y una
I have a question and an idea. I don't know if this is going to work or not. The Shafter CSC, the ones that are here, we don't want to move money. We don't want to move any money for that now. My question or a suggestion will be that because we're trying to help the Shafter community, and the money can be reallocated for something else to benefit the Shafter community, not for other communities. So I was looking at something really interesting for a Shafter and for the community, not just for myself, but for everyone in general. The Shafter community, I think we just changed for the garbage can, the green, the black. Maybe it doesn't have to do anything with what we're talking about. Maybe some people would say that, but it's affecting the city. I received a flyer last month when where it says that if a container, a garbage container breaks, the homeowner, if you want another garbage container, you will have to pay $90 to replace that container. So I'm thinking, how is it possible for the city? Like if my garbage container breaks, I have to pay for it. But if the one that breaks it, it's the truck that is picking up the garbage. For me, that doesn't make sense. And I think it's like abuse against people because the one that picks up the garbage is the one that may break the container. Maybe they have to teach that people to pick up the garbage containers without breaking them because otherwise we will have to pay for them all the time. So I wonder if Shafter has money, why don't we allocate some funds for the Shafter city whenever they need to replace those garbage containers? It could be replaced without having to pay for it because $90 for each container, it's a lot of money. And not just for myself, but for a lot of people. And I don't think it's fair. I know that maybe it's not a problem that needs to be solved right now, but maybe it could be a topic to be considered in the future because it's money that could be reallocated to help the Shafter community so they wouldn't have to pay for the garbage container if to have like some funds available to replace that container. At least that's what I think. I don't know what everyone else thinks. Good afternoon. Maribel wants to cover that cost, but I think that's something that it has to be dealt with the city. Yeah, but if we give funds to the city to use part of the program's funds to replace the containers and maybe talk to the city, like ask them, why would they have to charge us for the containers if the one that breaks it is the truck that picks up the garbage? When we had the veterans meeting at the city, they explained that very clearly. I think that the city, if they receive that money, maybe they are not going to use for it, and they don't know who replaced the garbage container or not. I think that's something that we have to discuss with the city and maybe then cover it in the meeting. As we, allocate some money to change the mowers, maybe we could provide a solution because every problem has a solution. It's something that maybe we can put on the table to discuss in the future to know what can we do about it. I think it's more interesting and more necessary. Why they always blame us, residents, of the pollution. If you would be at the Shafter City right now, that they're fixing the Lerdo, they are fixing finally that road. The trucks pass just in front of my house. I think it's like 24/7, just in front of my house. How can I compare semis with like with these mowers that are used like once a week or every 8 days? That level that you're showing up there, it's very tragic. I don't know if you're trying to make us feel guilty. The roof companies, they pollute much more 24/7, like 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I think that's the priority than to say that with the lawn mower, we can contaminate as driving to LA, please. But the ones that have that businesses that they use the lawn mowers, I gave them the flyers, but they are not interested in changing their lawn mowers with electric equipment. They don't want that. They don't want that. unless they are forced to do that, like to change their business, but they don't want to change their lawn mowers, even though they get assistance. I don't understand why. So that was my comment, and thank you.
Thank you very much. I hear you loud and clear, and I think we want to just pause and reflect on your comments and think about how what this measure or change in allocation of funds is saying is that these two realities exist, right? So in Stephanie's slide, I don't know, Stephanie, if you can show that slide, what the air district is showing is that here's the contamination that gets emitted from a lawnmower. Yes, that is one type of individual contamination that happens that's very different than the emissions that you would get from a heavy duty truck. We'll talk about heavy duty trucks in a second. Yes, and it's also very different than the contamination that happens with the lack of recycling, inappropriate recycling, not complying with recycling. All those things are all very true, every single one of them. What the Air District is trying to talk about tonight is that regardless of which contaminant we're talking about, you all as a CSC approved a SERP measure, right? We approved a SERP, and now as that SERP is being implemented, this particular line item in the funding deserves some attention. So it's not about moving one line item to something completely different. The question is, knowing what you know just about lawnmowers, does it make sense to allocate funds here? And can we vote on this next slide of saying, yes, we want to move the funds, or no, we don't? All the other things that you all shared tonight are absolutely true. They're all facts and they're all contaminants in the valley, and you all have direct lived experience of seeing those things on a daily basis. All those realities coexist. And for tonight's meeting, the thing that we do have control over is for this item, we want to know, would you all like to go to a vote? So I think right now, this is your meeting. I'm looking at the clock at 6 o'clock. We would like to know where everyone stands. We can take a vote right now on the next slide, Stephanie, before proceeding to the next measure that we want to see if we want to move funds as well. And then we also have CalDem here today to provide us an update on the oil wells. And we also have Department of Pesticides Regulation to give a presentation on a demonstration of their new monitoring system. So I know these are also all things that you all want to hear about. So I'm not dismissing you all. I'm just saying all these realities are true. But for now, the one thing we want to know is within the residential lawn and garden measure, does it make sense from your perspective to add $100,000, which is equivalent to about 200 mowers added, or do not add $100,000? That is the one thing that we're voting on. So Bianca and Linda, I see your hands up. Are your comments in relationship to this?
Mine are.
Okay, so in one moment, we'll take your vote. Let's take these two comments and then we'll take the vote. Okay, so Maribel, Anabel, son 5 personas. I mean, how many people? Sorry, my brain. 5. Okay.
6.
We are 6, but we don't want to move the funds.
Okay, Bianca, go ahead. Or Linda, I missed.
I really wanted to give a comment in regards to the lawnmower. I think it's important to address other SERP measures instead of doing another event of lawnmowers. I do agree with the ladies that it's really nice to have an event and have community members come out, but at the same time, we're still behind in a lot of the SERP measures. I'm talking about the green barrier, something that could prevent exposure, like the ladies were mentioning. You're blaming community members for being the emitters, but the polluters that are polluting continue doing the pollution. And instead of addressing other polluters that they're pollution is way worse than a lawnmower. Like they were mentioning, once a week you do lawn mowing, but polluters like the ag industry, the oil and gas, they pollute 24/7. That is totally different. We've asked for green barriers, green vegetation. We only have one application. We don't even know if it's been approved or not. So we haven't moved one SERP measure that could actually help community members. And yet you're wanting more money for a project that it does sound good. It is very nice. It looks very nice in the Air District's profile, but is it really going to help? It's going to help just a quarter of what big polluters do in the community. And I think we should address that first. Sorry, my kid is in the pantry, but I think we should address that first before moving any funding. And I don't think we should vote now. I think we should hold on to the voting, because if we don't get any updates on the rest of the SERPs, then why is the Air District wanting to allocate more funding? Is it because they want to do an event and the yearly report is coming up? I'm sorry to be like that, but those are the things that we're looking at behind the scenes. We want to see something different. If we see a green vegetative barrier coming up or an application being approved, then for all my means, do it. But if we don't see anything moving from like the green vegetative or anything else, or the filtration, then what's going to happen? This is a continuation that the Air District is doing every year, and we don't want it to happen again. So for my vote, I don't think we should vote on it today. We could bring it up later on, but I think we should consider it more, and for the district to continue doing the advocacy for other SERP measures that are more tangible for the community.
Thanks, Bianca. This is Stephanie, and I'm hoping that I can respond to this. I just also want to reassure folks that doing this lawnmower event does not take away from any of our efforts that we're working on in all of our other SERP measures. In fact, the funding where this measure, kind of this 100K that we're talking about, it is currently with locomotive switchers, and that's a measure that we do understand that there hasn't been very much interest. So we are actually moving it to a measure that we know community that could benefit residents. They're seeing these lawnmowers, in their homes, they get to use them, and it's a benefit that's actually going towards residents. And I do also want to emphasize that, this is something that we've heard from CSC members. I don't think we want to make sure that these events are things that are benefiting folks. It's not, it has nothing to do with annual reporting. It has all to do with us wanting to get these funds into the community to reduce emissions. And so, yeah, these are things I just want to emphasize to folks that these are all things that we can do in parallel with each other. We don't have to work on one measure and before we focus on another. And we have our teams that want to push out and are working on all of these measures all at once to support the community.
Go ahead, Linda.
I just had a question on that event that we did in Shafter where you guys had it was an all-inclusive, people brought their old lawnmowers and they could do the paperwork right there with Valley staff. I heard really positive feedback from them because there was translation there and there was help with the application. So I was kind of just wondering how many we gave out that time, and if we could do another event like that. I know right now there's only 40 left, but if we, later on, could we maybe move some funds if we are going to do an event, if it's a positive one like that, where we had, good participation.
Thanks,
well, here
for your question.
We had 150 lawnmowers, so that is really good. And we would really need to move the funds then, because I don't see it going to a locomotive. I mean, that's where we're taking the funds from, right? I mean, if we put all that money towards a locomotive, we have no way to trace where that goes. I mean, it's great. It helps out all of California, but it's not helping out Shafter directly like the lawnmowers would.
Thanks, Linda. And yeah, that's exactly the kind of conversation we're having is in us moving this 100K, the thought would be to hold the same kind of event in which we had staff come. We had folks could actually bring their device to be dismantled. They didn't have to take it to Bakersfield or somewhere that was further out. And to do all of that one-stop shop and just leave with a mower. That's kind of the distribution event that we look to hold in the community.
I would
Go ahead,
vote
Todd.
for that. It was such positive feedback I heard from the community on that.
Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Linda. Go
Todd.
ahead, Todd. Yeah.
Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Todd DeYoung, the district's Director of Grants and Incentives. Pleasure to be here this evening. Just wanted to kind of support and reinforce what Stephanie was saying. My group is involved in implementing the individual CERT measures. And a shift like this, for additional lawnmowers in the Shafter area, like Stephanie said, would in no way take away from the efforts that are going on in all the other CERT measures. We're working extremely hard on implementing every one of the CERT measures that has been included in the Shafter CERT, and we'll continue to do so. This one was very popular. It was very successful. Like you said, we were able to replace 150 lawnmowers in a day. This is actually being looked at as a model in a lot of the other CERP communities right now. They've seen the success in the Shafter community with the lawnmower in-person exchange, and they want to replicate that in areas like Stockton and some of the other CERP communities. So this is something that we found was very beneficial. And again, we do have to sort of concern ourselves with timelines to expend these funds. This was a very popular program. It was a very successful program, and taking it from the locomotive measure, which in previous discussions with the CSC, the locomotive measure was not a higher priority or not the highest priority of the committee. And so we felt that taking it from the locomotive and switcher replacement measure was an appropriate place to take it. Given that, we're still actually working to see if there are any opportunities for locomotive and switcher replacements within Shafter. And even with the shift of $100,000, we would still have funding available within the Shafter CERP to do any projects that do arise, and obviously we would take those back to the steering committee for approval at that time. But just to reinforce, working on this measure, doing another in-person event at some point here in the near future would in no way take away from our efforts and the district's efforts in implementing all the other CERT measures here in the district.
Thanks, Todd. And this is Stephanie. I just want to add, I wanted to respond to Bianca and I lost my train of thought. I also just want to emphasize that there is, in general, we are moving lots of measures forward. One of those being, like I shared earlier, we are working with the city of Shafter and then also the county to move forward paving projects. Also later in this presentation, I have some really great updates on vegetative barriers and urban greening. So I do hear the desire to move forward CERT measures, and I just want to really emphasize that we are moving and pushing these measures forward, but that doesn't mean that we can't continue to kind of support and move other CERT measures like residential lawn and garden measure, the residential lawn and garden measure forward as well. Go ahead, Bianca.
Yes, I do agree with it, but at the same time, I see that there could be a potential later on if we do need that funding for other projects. And like I'm hearing a lot of frustration coming from community members where there's trucks coming in. There's a potential of rerouting, talking to the highway patrol or things like that. It's an exploratory way we could do it to address it. But at the same time, if we keep pushing for lawnmower because the event looks good, it is good. It looks very nice in the Air District website. But my issue is like, there's other projects that could be funded that might need to be funded later on. Like you were mentioning, you're reaching out for the filtration to a lot of the students, the schools and things like that, parents there. Applications could come in and filtration does help. As I heard a comment, I can't remember who was a comment about, but where the filters are helping with their I think it was Brenda, with the individuals' allergies, things like that. Those are the outreach that could be done coming from the Air District, and I would really appreciate it. I think for voting purposes, I think we should wait. I don't think it's a bad idea. I'm not going to say that it's a horrific idea to add from the locomotives, but I think it's at the moment, I think we should hold on for a later date to vote on it.
I've heard
Sure.
it maybe, sorry, Vanessa, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Stephanie.
No, I've just, yeah, I've heard maybe, I think on both sides of the aisle, and I think just per our charter, when it's the case that we can't reach consensus, we take things to a vote. So maybe I'm looking to our facilitation team. I've appreciated the discussion. I appreciate the feedback, but we're also happy to maybe get a final vote. That way we can move forward with the agenda and we have some exciting other updates and then also some other agenda items we want to get to.
Thanks, Stephanie. Annabelle, I see you have your hand raised. Oh, is that an old hand?
Disculpe, estaba.
Excuse me, it was moving to a different place, the microphone. I was counting and seeing the lawnmowers, and I think if my calculator is not too advanced, it's telling me that every lawnmower is costing $500.
El máximo.
I'm putting the max because you're saying $80,000 or 192 lawnmowers. If you make your numbers, just calculate that. You're telling us the quantities and you're telling us about money, but you don't give us the receipts to tell us how much was each lawnmower. Never. You only tell us the money in class numbers. But in reality, we are with this economy, and I'm counting even the carrots that I'm buying. I would like you to please tell us how much is every lawnmower to have an amount, an exact amount that we are putting the money. Because it's easy to speak about thousands and thousands without seeing anything. I'm sorry, but for us, we have to save the most that we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to.
Si se repartieron.
Yes, if you were giving 192 machines were given, what was the pollution that went down? If you gave 150 in the program that we had, what was the number of emissions that went down? Was it significant, or did you see a difference in the pollution when you were giving those lawnmowers? And it's a difference from before. We would like to see the difference before having those lawnmowers and now to see what's the difference. If it really, it's worth it to move money to give more lawnmowers, because if we don't have any difference, why?
Hi, this is Stephanie. I'm happy to clarify this couple of questions. I did want to point to on the presentation where you can see what's covered for this measure. So as you can see, this new measure, which is enhanced from the district program, it covers up to $500 per household for each mower. And so you're correct, it is about the units that we had for, that we selected for the event that we held, they were about 500. And so that's where in the presentation it describes how much folks are eligible for. And I did want to just kind of refer back to our tracker. I'm actually going to pull up the English one, but I just wanted to show where you can see the tons that are reduced. And I'm happy to share this in the chat also. But you can see for this residential lawn and garden measure, I'm just going to highlight it and kind of point to some numbers here. These are the total achieved NOx and PM 2.5 reductions that we're seeing, the total tons that we're seeing based on this measure. And so there are kind of just, I think just per your concerns, we are seeing real emissions being reduced in the community, especially ones that are, near homes, near where children are playing. They do, we are moving from gas powered things to electric. And so we are seeing a reduction of emissions from those. Hope that answers your question. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for clarifying that question. And thank you so much, everyone, for providing your questions and your comments regarding this proposed shift in funds. So given that there are a few opposing comments, and given that we are running out of time to move on to the next topic, which is vegetative barriers and urban greening, we're going ahead and call a vote at this time. So we're going to ask folks to please raise your Zoom hand if you are for moving funds to the lawn and garden measure. You can also go ahead and post your comment in the chat if you'd like to signify that you are for this measure.
No queremos cambiar nada.
We don't want to switch any money.
Thank you, Annabelle.
So Vanessa, just to clarify, people raise their hand if they are for moving the money, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You're going to raise your hand if you want to move the funds. If you don't want to move the funds, you don't have to raise your hand. And if you're also for moving the funds, if you'd rather post in the chat via comment, you can also do that. So far, I see that there are 4 hands raised. And I believe one person indicated previously that they are for moving the funds in the chat.
Was that the same person? That's Michelle, the same person. So it's still 4 people. So we have 4 yeses. And Annabelle, how many people are with you again? 5, you said?
Ellos son residentes, perdón. Los que
They're
están
residents, I'm sorry, the ones that are in favor.
with you, Annabelle. 5.
Nosotros aquí somos 6.
We are 6 here.
Y
So at
hay
this-
más personas que no están aquí.
We have more people that are not here with us, but they're also at the same time here in the computer. Gustavo, Bianca, and I don't know if they agree. I don't know if Angelica Lopez.
Señora Anabel, nomás diciendo que
Annabelle, we are saying that we are giving permission to move funds from this project of distribution for the lawnmowers. So this is to put more funds and we can bring more and distribute more to the residents. And that's the reason that we are in favor of that. To move the funds from the locomotive and put more funds in the distribution of the lawnmowers.
I vote for no. My vote is for no.
Great, so we're just gonna hold on the nose. So I'm seeing 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 residents voting yes. And we have
We are more.
that you are present today. We have Bianca as a no, and then we have the 5 of you that are there. So a total of 6.
Ángel Vargas, pon tu
Angel
mano.
Vargas, can you put your hand up that you don't agree because you're a resident from here and you're in the meeting? Fermin Vargas.
Fermín no ha votado.
Fermin hasn't voted yet.
Fermín, would you like to vote yes or no?
Only the residents are voting, correct?
Right, Fermín's a resident.
Who and who is John a resident or is he part of the industry?
John's a resident.
Yeah, he's a resident.
Belongs.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have it looks like we have a tie. Is that what I'm seeing, a tie? All right, so we will table this and bring it back to another meeting. Thank you
I
all.
have a question. If we have, so I see residents, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there were 6 that were residents voting yes. And then I'm confused at the group. There's 4 there presently that voted no. I'm confused at.
And
like,
there's Bianca.
residents.
Yeah.
Is she a resident?
Bianca.
I'm part of the EJ. I'm part of the EJ piece for the 617.
Yep. So we are at a tie, is what I'm seeing,
So that's
without
not all
Bianca. Mhm. Angie, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just trying to clarify for myself. So it's residents voting or residents not voting?
Residents are voting.
Okay, but CSC members that are not residents don't count in the vote, right?
Right.
Gotcha, thank you.
Mhm.
And so do we just have a new resident that just put his hand up? So is that 7 for it?
Oh, Fermín, are you voting for yes or no?
I think he can unmute.
Let's see here.
Entonces, de nada cuenta que el comité se oponga si todos los residentes votan a favor, ¿lo van a hacer? El comité no
repeat that
importa
again?
si se niega.
So it doesn't matter if all the residents are in favor. So it doesn't matter. It's not valued to have a committee.
I have a question, Dr. Ramos. So my vote doesn't count because I'm actually texting with Cesar, and I was wondering, in the blueprint, us sitting in the EJC, our vote does count. Does it or does it not? So I wanted to clarify that question.
So let me just reread the charter, Stephanie, but I was under the impression that for your charter, your governing body, you all decided that the residents are the ones that vote. But let me just triple check that. So the blueprint is different, right? That's a guideline, but every CSC has its own charter.
Yeah, hey, Amy.
Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Brian with CARB. I would say, yeah, the blueprint gives guidance, but each community designed their charter about how decisions would be made, whether it's voting or consensus and who could vote. So I would definitely check the charter language for Shafter.
This is Gustavo Senior. I'm just an alternate to Bianca, so I don't have a vote here, but I think Fermín wants to say something, but also it may be good maybe to table it and have this discussion in the future to ensure that everybody understands. I believe there are some confusions about, what we want to decide.
If I could just clarify too, I do see Fermin is unmuted. And so per our charter, I do believe government is the government are the only individuals that cannot vote. And then Fermin, I see you're unmuted. I wondered if you had a comment.
My audio cut off, Stephanie, bad timing. I missed the last piece of what you said.
Yeah, per our charter, I do believe it's government officials that can't vote. The CSC, which includes residents, EJ members, business, would be eligible to vote. Just not our government, our what we call like ex officio, and they would not vote.
Thanks, Gus Jr., for refreshing our memory there. Thank you, Stephanie. So in that case, we'll do this one last time. And because it sounds like we need to move it to another meeting instead of actually coming to a vote. Is that what I'm hearing? Or should we call a vote?
I think just given maybe the like back and forth that we're experiencing, and maybe just hearing that folks are maybe want to come back to this, we can plan to bring this back at an upcoming meeting.
That sounds good. So let's go ahead and transition. I know we had a lot more SERP updates, but we also have our guest presenting tonight from CalGEM and from DPR. So wondering how the committee would like to move forward. Do we want to have more SERP updates? Or do we want to hear from our presenters that have are here today and ready to present?
This is Stephanie. Maybe to add to Dr. Ramos, I can finish off the presentation with an update on vegetative barriers and urban greening, or else we can kind of move forward. We also have a presentation from CalGEM to discuss their joint inspection efforts in the Shafter community. And then we also have an update from DPR, the Department of Pesticide Regulation, on a demo on the statewide notification system. I'm seeing in the chat, Michelle. Okay, I'm seeing two people now. A quick update. I'm going to make this quick. Initially, I think we had wanted to seek CSC just kind of like consensus, similar to what we just discussed, for this measure to potentially move forward with a contract. And if folks are happy to do that today, we can certainly move forward. We can also follow up if folks aren't feeling kind of ready to finish that discussion. So I'm going to share my screen. And again, we're going to pivot a little bit. So this update is going to be related to our urban greening and vegetative barriers proposals. We have two of those separate proposals in our SERP. Vegetative barriers is funded at $1 million and urban greening is funded at $50,000. And we do have exciting news. I think folks might remember we did open the request for proposals to seek an entity to implement the programs. We opened it several times and didn't have folks that we were doing outreach and we didn't have folks apply to the first round. So we did open it again. And we are happy to report we had a proposal submitted for our vegetative barriers project and this project is the Palm Wonderful Orchards proposal. The funding, it's not for the full amount. Again, we have 1 million allocated for vegetative barriers. This proposal is just a portion of that. And the total amount for the project is $176,000. And they will be planting 4,000 oleanders in the community. There's 3 project locations that are proposed. 7th Standard Road from Driver Road to Cherry Avenue, Burbank Street from Santa Fe Way to Gold Avenue, and Lerdo Highway from Cherry Avenue to Friant Kern Canal. And just generally, I think as folks know, part of this proposal is to be able to maintain and ensure that these plants are being taken care of. They're living in the community and they're not just dying right after folks plant them. And so Wonderful Orchards will be providing long-term care and maintenance of these oleanders that they're planting. So I did just want to share just generally the locations. I know this map is actually a little small. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. But generally, we have this map that might look familiar to folks. This is where all of our CSC members were inputting locations for potential projects. And these highlights indicate where the projects would be going. A couple of other quick things. We just wanted to really highlight the benefits to the community, like what you all would be seeing. These vegetative barriers would be planted kind of south of field. And so we would expect this to reduce dust from equipment use of farms. Also, it would promote better air quality for residents in kind of nearby communities, and also improve visibility and safety on the road. And I think as many folks remember in our conversations, the CSC was very supportive of potentially pivoting and planting oleanders, which wasn't in the original proposal. And so these are a good option to help filter dust and pollution. They're drought resistant and generally don't have really too many impacts on schools and people in the surrounding area. I just also wanted to wrap up with a couple of other exciting updates. Generally, we're looking kind of for your support to move forward with with finalizing the contract for vegetative barriers. I do know that overall, we just wanted to share that we do see that these vegetative barriers will provide an impact to the community, but we want to also share that we understand this is just like, a small portion of the funding. We still have, if the CSC supports it, about $800K to continue working with different businesses, to continue to see more vegetative barriers planted in the community. Also a small update regarding urban greening. We have been doing outreach, working with different partners in the community. And we do have an interested project partner for the urban greening measure. And so we've actually reopened that proposal and expect to have that one close very shortly here. Probably, I think the proposal is open for about 30 days and we'll definitely bring updates to the CSC as that closes. And just closing off, we will continue with outreach efforts and discussions with different community groups and then also and businesses in the area to continue to address the remaining funds that we have in vegetative barriers. Again, even if we do kind of move forward, if it is that the CSC supports this measure, we still have about 800,000 in the community to continue planting vegetative barriers. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Anabel, please go ahead.
Sí, nosotros anduvimos con los del Wonderful.
We were with the Wonderful, Bianca. We were with them and we told them that we don't need vegetative barriers because the Mexican colony, it's far from it, but there is a closer area. I don't know if they put something on it or no, because the other area, it's far. It doesn't have to do anything with our community. And that, I think it's, I don't know if it's still part of Shafter, actually. The 7 standard is where they have their companies, but it doesn't need that vegetative barrier to cover part of the Mexican colony. We were very clear. We told them that we didn't want that. We even gave them example with other areas where we do need the vegetative barriers that are more needed. Thank you.
Thanks. And go ahead, Linda.
The map was up really quick and I saw it was on Lerdo Highway, and I just want to thank the Wonderful Company for that because that was one that I brought up. There's a couple times last year where I had to slow down because of the dust. So I'm very grateful that they would put it up there because that's such a highly traveled area between Shafter and 99. So I couldn't, the map is so tiny on my computer. It's very hard to see where you're putting the other ones. But I just wanted to speak out on Lerdo Highway, and I am thanking them for doing that.
Can folks see the map? I can try and also find a different image, but I'm wondering, can most folks see the map that I'm showing?
You go to the left a little bit, we're just seeing the Google Earth view. Yeah, there you go. And then maybe can you go in a little tiny bit more?
I know it's pretty fuzzy. So we have Lerdo Highway from Cherry Avenue to Kern Canal. We have Burbank Street from Santa Fe Way to Golds Avenue. And then we have 7th Standard Road from Driver to Cherry Avenue. And thanks, Linda, for your comment. Bianca, go ahead.
I wanted to give thanks to the company Wonderful. I think the fields that are covered by the company Wonderful, they submitted the application like Santa Fe. I know that as Annabelle mentioned, we did do a little small runaround of what the application was looking like, and we had a couple folks from the Wonderful giving us the ideas of where they want to see the Olanders. And we wanted to see how long is the application process to get it approved, or is it pending? Do we have a timeline when that should be a workable, tangible SERP measure that could help out the community? I know that 7 standard, as Annabelle was mentioning, doesn't affect the community, but it does affect the residents that are traveling back home. And I do agree with that in having that 7 standard, because it does affect community members as they're commuting back home.
Thanks, Bianca. And I think I maybe heard some questions just about timeline, kind of process-wise. If the CSC supports it, we would need to kind of finalize the contract with Palm Wonderful. And that does take some time. As far as when they'd start planting, I'm not 100% positive that we could, I think it could potentially be in the fall of this year or maybe spring of next year. But I think overall, us being able to move these contracts forward, again, just gets more funding and then more projects starting to work in the community. And then like you all are mentioning, we can continue to work with more businesses, continue to work in other areas that we want to see these vegetative barriers for that remaining 800,000. Go ahead, Michelle.
I agree with Bianca and Linda. That vegetative barriers are just not for just the Mexican colony. There are other places we can use them elsewhere, and it's a good place to start to build that. And as they do it, other people may follow suit because they see the project as successful.
Thanks, Michelle. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think it's been some time since we submitted, I'm with a wonderful company. And it's been some time since we submitted that application and had conversations with the district. And I believe that Jed and Unique went around with Annabelle and a few community members. And they did indicate that they weren't particularly interested in the 7th Standard Road piece. I think we need to go back and revisit this some. It's been a long time. We have to coordinate this with our orchards group, and so it needs to be tightened up a little bit. So we'll reach back out to some of the community members in the district and make sure that we're well coordinated on how this could move forward. Okay. So I'm not, these things are actually quite a bit more expensive than I think people generally realize, because trees have to be removed. And so I think we need to just make absolutely sure that we're investing the money in the places that it does the most good. So I look forward to working with the residents and the district to tighten this up. I mean, I guess today I heard from some people they didn't care about having them on 7th Standard Road, and then I heard from other people that they do care about having them on 7th Standard Road. We want to make sure that 7th Standard Road is actually one of the easier ones to do. The right of way is wide and it's particularly easy to do, but we want to make sure that the investment goes in the places that it does the most good.
Thanks, John, for your comments. Maybe I'm just trying to look for clarification also. Just in terms of kind of the projects we've presented, are these projects something you want to bring back to your team and then re-present to the CSC, or would we tonight be ready to take this, should there be support from the CSC to move these forward, these projects forward?
Well, I think support is good, but and we submitted the applications, but this has been some months ago. A lot of things have happened in this, in this amount of time. So I mean, we need to go back to our orchards team, or the team that actually is responsible for this, and go back to the community and just make sure that we're well coordinated on the effort, and that we're hitting the marks where we can, and investing the money that in the appropriate places. So I mean, this has kind of been one of those sorts of situations where applications were made. I don't know how long ago it was. It's been several months. And then there's been a lot of discussion about how these things can come together. So, I mean, the wonderful company is interested in doing something. We want to be, good neighbors. So we'll figure it out. But, I think moving forward is fine. I'm a little confused on 7th Standard Road. And I just want to make sure before we make any sort of, firm commitments there. It does seem, I live in Shafter. It does seem to me like the Laredo Highway piece is pretty important, and maybe 7th Standard Road is as well. I know that there are people in the colony who go to Bakersfield and back that way. That may be just as important as Laredo Highway. So let's just kind of make sure we know what we're doing. Okay.
Thanks, John. I see a couple more comments. Maybe we can close off with Gustavo Senior and then Linda.
Yeah, I was also on the tour with Wonderful when they showed us, their areas that they wanted to propose, and I think as Annabelle mentioned, that may not, 7 Standard may not be the best place to have it, but I think it's important because it's traffic, but also the other thing to consider here, we have been trying to start these kind of projects for long time with no one project started. I think if we do, I think on Lerdo, I think we all agree that this is very, very important. But I think Bianca is the voting person for CRP. I'm not here, but I'm just giving my comments. But that I think if moving forward, it will be a good example, not only for chapter, but also Arvin Lamont and other areas, that it can be done, because I think in chapter and other 617 projects, we are struggling to find, entities willing to commit. So I just comment, that I think we have a lot of positive things moving forward. The big one to me is, both benefiting the community, but also having it as a good example for more projects in chapter and also influencing other 617s.
Thanks, Gustavo Senior. Go ahead, Linda.
Just some other areas of possible concern is south of the cemetery, and I don't know who owns what land. These are just suggestions. So if Wonderful doesn't, then it's fine. But south of the cemetery on Central, going to Bakersfield that way, there's dust sometimes. And then also, I didn't want to leave out Highway 43 south of Los Angeles, because there's dust there, and there's actually dust south of Rio Bravo School that sometimes gets bad too, but I don't know if that's outside of the 7-mile radius. So just wanted to throw those two areas out as well. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm just generally hearing lots of support for, there's like maybe one project in here that we want to continue to talk about that Don has already let us know he wants to work with community members on. I'm wondering if maybe we can find or see if there's consensus or support for the kind of the 2 first projects that were mentioned, and then we can continue to work with Wonderful in this group kind of to flesh out that 3rd one. I'm wondering if there's generally any objections to us moving forward with those first 2 projects mentioned on Lerdo and Burbank Street. And then we can continue to work with Wonderful on kind of that remaining piece and just moving forward with this proposal in general. And I do see also Bianca, your hand. Go right ahead.
Stephanie, I just wanted to address that the company Wonderful did apply on south of the cemetery. That's where the second I believe is Burbank, or that is a crossing. And I think it's going to be covered through the company Wonderful. So that's why I'm very appreciative that they are listening to community members and wanting to cooperate. So they are going to be doing that piece where it's very dusty when trafficked area is happening.
Thanks, Bianca. And definitely we appreciate Wonderful. It sounds like there's been a lot of kind of groundwork done, and also hearing John's comments just about wanting to continue to work with CSC members. I'm actually maybe looking at, maybe it's not me that does it, but maybe looking to Vanessa and Amy to maybe carry on. Just generally, I think we were just looking for kind of just support, CSC support for moving forward the proposals. And again, I think I'm hearing support for 2 of the projects, and maybe just coming back to work with on the 3rd one with Wonderful. Maybe seeing if you all want to look for consensus for that item.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. So as Stephanie said, there seems to be a lot of support for this measure. And at this time, we'd like to see if any folks have any opposing comments that they'd like to share so that we can establish consensus and move forward with implementing this component of the CERP measure. So if there are any opposing comments that folks would like to share at this time, feel free to share out, or you can also post in the chat. Not seeing anything in the chat at this time, not seeing anything that would lead me to believe that folks are opposed to this, so we can go ahead and move forward with implementing this component of the measure. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. That wraps up the SERP update presentation. I will just tee up, there was one last item we didn't quite get to regarding our heavy duty truck measure. And I think just to tee it up maybe for the next meeting, we'll send out a follow-up email in addition to kind of standing update emails as well.
And Stephanie, given that for next time you'll be providing a presentation on the heavy duty trucks, wondering if you can provide a little bit more context, because you're asking folks to kind of read up on it and come with some familiarity to the next meeting, so it's not surprising or it's not fresh for the first time. Go ahead, Michelle.
I checked the agenda this morning. If maybe Stephanie's slides had been in there, we could have maybe looked at that. Just, you know, when you click on the sheet and it says updating, if you go to the community, if those were been posted this morning, maybe we'd had a chance to read it or have formulated questions. This group does not like to vote on the fly, if you haven't noticed. And so if we can have a little more beforehand, whether it's even it's sent out to us day before, hey, some just things, you know, or something that just kind of helps get your head where we're talking about.
Thanks, appreciate that feedback, Michelle. I'm gonna craft a whole email that has information about it, but then also I think links to the presentation and just some background information about kind of the progress on the heavy duty trucks and just kind of a new pathway we have that we want to present to you all. So I love that. We'll send out lots of information for you all to kind of read up on and then make it clear in the next agenda that we'll plan to discuss it. Thank you. I'm passing back to Amy and Vanessa.
Thanks, Stephanie. I'm looking at time and I see that we have about 10 minutes left of our meeting, and we had a couple of presentations lined up after this SERP implementation update. So the first one was the oil wells in the community presentation, and the second was a DPR regulation update and demo. And so at this time, I'd like to open up the floor to see which item folks would like to prioritize for the rest of this meeting.
And Vanessa, this is Amy. Also want to be mindful, we have 8 minutes left, and we had allocated 30 minutes for DPR to present and 20 minutes for CalGEM to present. So wondering if folks want to just provide a quick overview and a link to the presentation, and then we can have you all come to the next meeting. Again, we apologize. Sometimes these things happen and we have a community discussion. It was a great discussion, learned a lot, and folks really got an opportunity to share their point of view. And as you know, this is a community-driven process. So this is kind of, you know, part of having these community steering meetings. And Courtney, I see you unmuted. So I don't know if you want to just plant the seed for a future presentation.
I just wanted to offer up, I think Matt could probably go through our presentation in less than 6 minutes if the community wanted to hear that.
How does that sound to folks?
And maybe I'll just add the information that they're presenting is kind of in preparation for a round of inspections that will happen before the next meeting. So I do think they wanted to get this information to you all ahead of that.
Yeah, I'm not hearing any opposition, so maybe we can go there, Courtney. And DPR, our apologies, but we'll have you on the agenda for next time to do your demo. Go ahead.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew Bufflavin. I'm the enforcement chief at CalGEM, and I'll go quickly through my prepared slides here. First of all, I just wanted to show a map of the wells that are in the Shafter area. In this larger 7-mile circle, there's 127 active wells, 105 wells that are idle, and then there's been 198 wells that have been previously plugged and abandoned. Next slide, please. Also important for CalGEM are critically and environmentally sensitive wells. The Shafter area in the larger circle has 23 critical environmentally sensitive wells. Next slide, please. So as you remember, we met in June and we talked a little bit about the methane task force and how CalGEM and CARB have formed the task force, and we're working together with the Air District, and we'll be doing joint inspections and enforcement. This allows us to share our expertise and coordinate our inspection efforts. These inspections are in addition to our regular inspections. Next slide, please. So hearing your input from last time where you had asked for a buffer around the Shafter community itself, we devised a 3,200-foot boundary around Shafter, including all the active and idle wells in our inspection plan. We're also going to inspect all the other critical wells within the 7-mile radius. This is a total of 73 wells. During our inspections, we'll look at other equipment associated with the wells, such as tanks or pressure vessels that are located near the wells themselves. Next slide, please. So once again, just kind of showing you that the buffer itself and the wells that we intend to inspect within the Shafter community in the 3,200-foot barrier. There's 44 active wells in this area and 13 idle ones for a total of 57 wells. Next slide, please. And in the bigger, larger circle where we're going to be picking up 16 additional critical and environmental wells. And those wells are shown in the dark green. Next slide, please. So we worked closely with local emergency personnel and to coordinate when they want to be notified of a leak and potentially if there's an unsafe situation. CalGEM's going to follow their recommendations on when to notify them. And if there is a safety hazard, the local emergency personnel, they will assess the safety of the situation, and if necessary, they will conduct any additional outreach to the community. We plan to post our inspection results the day after if there are leaks identified during our inspection process, and we'll follow up later with a more detailed plan and report. We'll be updating our website, which is listed at the bottom of this slide, regularly as we go through our inspections. And if there are leaks identified, doing up follow-up and updates on the repairs of those leaks. Next slide, please. We're also planning to do some additional sampling during this effort. First of all, the inspectors will track methane dissipating from any leaking wells to where it falls down to background levels. Additionally, CARB is bringing gas samplers to sample for potentially toxic pollutants that would be being emitted by any leaks that we found. The results from the toxic gas analysis will be presented and discussed, hopefully at the next time we can meet with the community, and we can talk about the rest of our inspection results. And next slide, please. I'll finish the presentation here because I know we're short on time. But so our next steps, if we don't get any feedback tonight, we'll inspect those 73 wells during next week on August 22nd, 3rd, and 24th. We'll provide our inspection results on our website, as I stated before, and we're more than happy to come back to if you want, to the next Shafter meeting and give an oral presentation. There's other information included in the presentation about who to contact if there's a complaint about a well, and is provided. Please feel free to look at that or reach out to us. Thank you very much for taking your time tonight.
Thanks, Matthew. We'll share, like Matthew said, I know there's a little bit more to the presentation and we'll share that out for folks to kind of review on their own time.
May I am seeing a request. Could the district email the findings of the inspections to the CSC list, sir?
Yeah, and so we'll plan to actually bring, if it's, of interest to the CSC, to bring CalGEM actually back to the next meeting to actually present the results. And then, yeah, normally I think typically what we do is we do follow up via email, just so, I think it does happen that most of the time, there's something we don't get to and we do email information out to the CSC, so we can do that.
And maybe just to add to that, Stephanie, I think CSR is reflecting an approach we took with the Arvin Vermont joint inspection, where we provided a written update and it was sent out to the community through the listserv. And so we can absolutely do that, CSR. I think the idea with the web posting and why it's in addition to is because we wanted to make sure that, we were able to provide slightly more timely updates to folks, but we can still provide that same information out through the listserv as well.
I do see a question in the chat from Cesar. Is there a level of methane at a certain distance from the wellhead that would trigger community notification?
We're working with the local fire department, and they've given us some levels of where they want to be notified, and then they'll ultimately make the decision about the safety of the situation and if there's additional communication outreach needed.
I also see a request from Bianca to mail hard copies, which we could definitely do.
Thanks, everyone. Does anyone have any additional comments or questions regarding that presentation before we transition into our next item? Not seeing any comments in the chat or any raised hands at this time, so we're going to go ahead and transition to our wrap up next steps item. So first off, I want to thank you all so much for being here and for participating in today's meaningful topics that help address communities' concerns around air quality. As we're approaching the end of our meeting, I'd like to take a moment to share a few key updates. So first off, we have the next agenda setting meeting that will take place next week on Monday, August 21st from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. via Zoom. And as always, we encourage everyone from the CSC to attend if you're able to, and we welcome your suggestions on how to improve the accessibility of agenda setting meetings, whether you can attend these meetings or not. You can let us know now by raising your hand to speak or via the chat if you have any suggestions. Or you can also reach out to the Air District or our team at H&Co using the contact information you see on this slide in front of you. Our next CSC meeting will take place on Monday, September 11th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. via Zoom. We hope to see you there, and we're looking forward to continue a discussion of a lot of the topics that we discussed today. We're now going to take a moment to review the action items that were captured in our tracker during our meeting today. I will go ahead and share my screen and read those out. As I share my screen and read out those action items, please feel free to ask for clarification or to ask us to update any actions to more accurately document any of the items that we wrote down. So if you just give me one moment. All right, can everyone see my screen okay?
Make it a little bit bigger, Vanessa.
Will do.
Uh, 100% on the left. Yep.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. So for today's action items, we have several. The first one is the Air District will provide updates on communications with the Ag Commissioner regarding violation of CSC group norms to develop next steps for inclusion in CSC meetings. The second item is the Air District will send SERP updates and progress toward implementation and any content relevant to voting for moving SERP funds in advance of CSC meetings. And last but not least, CalGEM will provide updates on inspection results to CSC members by posting on the web and sending to CSC members or the CSC listserv, as well as sending those hard copies to residents ahead of time. Does anyone have any edits or changes that they would like to make to the action items that we have today that you see in front of your screen? John, I see you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
And not to this, and I may have missed it, but I'm wondering if either on the website, and I haven't looked, or someplace we've gotten results from the mobile van that has been parked sort of downwind from the industrial area at Laredo Highway and 99. I haven't heard anything about the results from that van. Is that posted, or do we have that information? That's been there for a couple of months, I think.
Sorry, I was struggling with my my mute button. I wanted to share, we do have weekly reports, air monitoring reports. I don't know if folks are, if everyone is familiar with them, but we do have a section that describes the air monitoring van activities that happened for that week. And so I'll go ahead and post in the chat, and John, let me know if you can't find this.
That's okay. Is it on the website? Are they on the website? Yeah, I can find them there. That's fine.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat for you, and then look for the weekly air monitoring updates.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks both. Does anyone have any additional comments, questions that they would like to share about any of these action items before we transition on to public comment?
Stephanie, I'm trying to get through the monitoring, and it only shows the stage, the permanent, not the mobile source, the mobile van, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That John was mentioning.
Yeah, that's Stephanie. On the map, it'll just show the kind of the community and regulatory ones, because those are ones that stay in that same place. Because our air monitoring van moves around, you won't find it on that map. But if you look in the weeklies document, there'll be a little, and kind of towards the bottom, there'll be a box that has the van's like weekly monitoring activities. I'm happy to maybe email you, Bianca, and I can share information about how to find that.
Thank you, Bianca.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at it, but it's just comparing both locations. I'm also looking like what John was mentioning. Is there one specifically for the van that we could look at? What kind of chemicals is it picking up? Because it's continuously there, but we don't know any details of what's picking up. Because if we do see like the Grimway or DMV, it's PM 2.5 ozone, but here we don't know in clarity what are the chemicals, if they are, how much of VOCs, how much of PM 2.5 is it picking up? So I was wondering if the Air District could do something about it, so we could get clarity on the monitoring.
I know we're over time, but Vanessa, can I very quickly share my screen?
Yes.
And I'm happy to talk to anyone more in depth about our mobile air monitoring. Like I mentioned, on this main community page, we do have an archive of weekly air monitoring updates to the community. If you click on it, and sorry, this is just in English, but we do have Spanish versions. It does show kind of in where the van is being placed. And if you look at this monitoring, there's a line specifically for Lerdo and 99. And there's a little description about what's going on with the van.
But it's not showing what's picking up. That's my question.
Yeah,
If
so this
it's,
is monitoring Bianca for PM 2.5. That's what this first one is.
and for ozone, there's only one page. It just shows one page per week, but I was wondering if it's also picking up ozone or PM 2.5.
Yeah, and you can, sorry, this is Stephanie, on our monitors, and then for the rest of the monitors, not the van, you can go on the individual ones and it'll tell you all of the pollutants that are being monitored for. I also wanted to point you towards, we do have air monitoring data. Sorry, this is a little bit of a deep dive for folks that are interested in air monitoring. We also have here our mobile air monitoring van data that points you exactly to what you're saying, just generally more in-depth information about what the van is monitoring for.
But that's all for 2022 data.
Yes.
Recent data, and that van wasn't, I think I'm interested in particular for that location.
Yeah, I'm wondering maybe we can bring it up in the agenda setting to get an update on air monitoring data, if that's of interest of folks.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I'd like to not wait a month to see it as long as the van's been out there. It's been out there 2 months. So if someone could give me a call and let me know what it's been, you know, and it sounds like Blanca's are interested as well, whoever wants to know. And it's been there for quite a while, so it should have a fairly good string of data.
Thanks, John. Our team can reach out to yours, and anyone that's interested, please feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, John. This is Amy. I will use this opportunity for a shameless plug to invite you all to be part of the agenda setting meeting and debrief, and invite our CSC members to be a co-host. Community co-hosts are really important in helping shape the agenda for our CSC meetings. It sounds like there was a lot of things that we wanted to continue to unpack. We definitely have a lot of lessons learned from tonight and would love to see you attend our agenda setting meeting and debrief next week so that we can hear directly from you and craft the agenda for the next meeting. We'll definitely make sure to have DPR there to come back and provide a demonstration of their latest tool. Thank you, DPR, for staying on. We do have a series of email updates that you will get from all of our partner agencies who have a series of updates to keep you all informed. Given that this is a public meeting, we do also have time for public comment as part of this process. We want to ensure that if we have anyone else who's not a CSC member who does have something to contribute and wants to have their voice heard, now is the time. So we'll go ahead and pause to see if there's anyone else who has any question, any comment about anything that we've talked about today or that we haven't talked about. And Vanessa, do we have any comments from our YouTube live channel? As a reminder, we do stream these meetings live to ensure that the public has access using multiple functions.
Not at this time.
All right, thank you, Vanessa. Thank you everyone for a very engaging meeting. And we really appreciate everyone sharing their perspective, their own lived experiences, and their opinions on what should and should not be approved. We'll come back to all of these sort of updates at our next meeting and ensure that we have an agenda that reflects the needs of the community. I hope to see you next week at the agenda setting meeting. For tonight, that concludes our meeting. Thank you so much for being here and have a great night.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night. And thanks to our Linguistica team for interpreting. Thanks.